They were that way I can still stay. Going 3 days, we were not especially.
Seven o'clock. Rise. What's one indivisible. Roll call. We have everything here. Yeah.
Present.
Okay. I'm going to ask all the board members here to use the microphone as much as possible. If you can't hear us, you let us know and we will get closer to the mic so everybody can hear. It's very important and for all of us to be using the mic, including people who will be speaking, because there is somebody taking notes from the video feed. So if you're up here and you're talking, please get close to the mic so that we can clearly hear you and everything you have to say. First thing we have is what we need is a motion to approve the agenda. I make the motion to approve the agenda.
I second it.
Chuck seconds it. I'm in favor. Chuck?
Okay.
Nita, you're in favor. And the motion passes. Okay, have you all had a chance to look at the previous minutes from the last meeting we had?
Yes.
Everybody here?
Yes.
Somebody make a motion to approve those minutes?
I second it.
Okay, I'll make the motion. Chuck seconds it. I vote yes. Chuck?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, the next thing that we will have going on, we need to spend a few minutes or some time in a closed session with our attorney to discuss a confidential written legal opinion. Now, what that means is at this point in time, we're going to go into closed session. The 3 board members, Beth and our attorney will go into another room where we'll have a confidential discussion. In the meantime, if you would like to speak on behalf of either one of the things we're going to vote on today, there's a sign-up sheet back in the back. All I want you to do is fill out the sign-up sheet as it appears, which is your name, your address, your email, whether or not you're for or against it. And I don't want you to bring it up here until you come up to speak. That way that we can read into the mic who is speaking and what they're speaking about. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions on that? Okay. So what I need now is a motion. I will make the motion to go into one session, as I repeated before, with our township attorney to discuss confidential written legal opinion. Do I have a second for that?
I second it.
Okay, Chuck seconds it. I vote yes. Chuck, do you vote yes?
Yes, I do.
Did you vote yes?
Yes.
Yes, so it's unanimous. We're gonna step out of the room into the other room. Please, bear with us. It's gonna take some time. I don't know how much time. We don't expect it to be very long, but feel free to fill out those applications to speak if you'd like to speak. Thank you. Yeah, great stuff.
There's some pens available up here if you don't have one. Help yourself. Please return them.
I need to fill out that.
No, absolutely not. No.
Yeah, I don't think you do it.
Okay, all right, yeah, I was sure.
No, you're good. We just wanted to make sure.
Everyone.
It's hard to hear.
Okay, that's good.
I'm waiting.
I hope.
That's regarding this, how they're-
Yeah, so trying to do it right.
My guess. Folks, it's very fine.
I know. I'm good.
Nine three all the back.
No, you're right.
You was a relation. I rescued someone. Her brother was. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'm over this 93 largest in this house. But yeah, I always. Stay.
Yes.
So one of them. Like. Attitude set. Mondays. And then the guy so he was there. The first job. Actually, we was all time stuff back. He had it when they moved in. And so she went pay the additional restaurants and more meals to say he would eat something else. And even she called the phone first class like, no, we had always. It was all right. They brought us to bring somebody. 1 2 years ago.
Yeah. That's right. So I mean, oh yeah, he does. Yeah, finally get it. Well, is he working for the same contractor?
An hour and all. But he's working. Hang around.
It's found its way.
I saw it.
Right, you know?
That's right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because we're all small.
I know, we didn't have round. When we started. Now it's Well, it's got mad. Cancer. Oh, yes, right. It's like.
Yeah.
Yeah, they recommend.
No. Yeah.
And then they back. That's starting. Yeah. Oh, you know, it was 2 years ago. So stop by there.
That's what they said. Water out. Water.
Because of what I didn't want to stop. Yeah.
I didn't look at it down here. No, that's. Well, she's the one. I know it's. Yeah. Blueberry. I
Yes.
Maybe he is.
So I'm watching it. And you can see that it's one night.
But I'm not sure.
Yeah, where you're from. Last year. Yeah. That was, we had this.
I don't know. No, I don't think
You could put your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not really. No. Yeah, like we've been watching it. No. There's no.
Yeah, I know, I see that. Yeah.
I just saw it.
So I'm talking about that they started calls.
They started off.
That one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, like this.
Or sign or not, everything. But. Never did.
Well, only the engineering.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna make a decision. Public hearing. Address the issue. They said it didn't.
And then.
Oh, maybe it's just. Yeah, and I sent around. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I propose a motion to come back into open session. I vote yes.
Yes.
Anita votes yes. Chuck, do you vote yes?
Yes, I would, yes.
Okay, we return into the open public meeting session at 7:40. Okay, now it's time for public comments and communications we've received on these two issues here. So,
I think first you have public comments on non-public hearings.
I'm sorry. Is there anybody who would like to speak on something about the zoning, ZBA or anything else that you'd like to bring up? I don't see any hands, nobody's, so there does not appear to be any comments on public comments on communications about the non-public hearing. Okay, the public hearing. We are now open for the public hearing, the appeal of the zoning administrator's decision for this particular piece of property. You want to read it? You want to read the appeal?
If you wouldn't mind moving a second and then do roll call, move into the public hearing.
Sorry, what?
Motion for the public hearing.
Motion to go into the public hearing. I make the motion.
I second it.
Chuck seconds it.
Support.
I vote yes. Chuck?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Please forgive us. We need lots of help here with some of the procedural stuff here. So we're going to try to do this as well as we can. We will do it right, okay? So please feel free to help us as much as you can. Okay, now we're ready for to hear for this first thing, which is the hearing on the appeal of the zoning administrator's decision. Beth, would you like to bring it up? No.
We're saying, do you want to just have the applicant present or?
Okay.
So I've supplied you with copies of all of the paperwork that's been submitted for the appeal. And if you don't mind, I would defer to
Okay,
Ms. Boone and her attorney at this point.
please feel free to Ms. Boone, your attorney. Please use the microphone as much as you can.
Okay, I will try to do that, although I have to make reference to my documents over here. So,
Oh, no problem.
okay, let me introduce myself. My name is. Okay.
Just turn
It is-
Again, let me introduce myself. My name is David Zessin, spelled Zessin. I'm an attorney with Cunningham Dahlman in Holland, Michigan, and I represent Holly Boone, who is a full-time resident of Grand Junction, residing at 10236 51st Street in Grand Junction. I have assisted Holly in filing this petition, the first petition, which was filed as a result of the zoning administrator issuing a stop work order, which you have in your packet, on April 21st, 2023, as it relates to the construction of a auxiliary building that she is constructing on her property. The background of the objection is that Ms. Boone filed a application for a zoning permit on November 1st, 2022, requesting that she be granted permission to build an auxiliary building on her property in a specific location that was 36 by 56 in dimension. On November 21st, 2022, Ms. Boone received from the zoning administrator an email that said, "Good morning. Your request for a zoning permit has been approved. Please refer to the attached documentation and contact the building inspector more to obtain your building permit. Thank you." You've been given a copy of this packet. It consists of 5 pages, and it includes the zoning application, the zoning permit application that was filed by Ms. Boone on the 1st, specifically requesting a building 36 by 56 in dimension. You also received a copy of the zoning permit application, the zoning permit itself, issued by the zoning administrator, which approves the size of the building at 56 by 36 on the property and in the location designated on a survey that is attached also to this. So there is a survey that shows where the building is going to be built on the property as is required by the application process. In reliance upon this exhibit and pursuant to the direction, Ms. Boone contacted Mr. Morse, who is the building inspector, and on January 5th, Ms. Boone and Mr. Morse met at the property, and at that time, she requested and was granted a building permit. She paid $165.25 for that permit, was issued this permit. I think it's also part of your packet and part of the record today, indicating that this permit fee for a 36 by 56 by 12 pole barn storage building was approved, and that she was granted permission to construct this building in this size in this location. At the time that he came out there, Mr. Morris was able to see where the property was, where the building was going to be located. It was staked out. The specific location he approved, the location of the building. He gave her permission to proceed, and based on the reliance upon this permit, Ms. Boone hired a contractor. Contractor came out and obtained the materials, began construction in late February or early March. The building, as things proceeded, got to be about 80% done. During that time, the building inspector came out and did a rough-in inspection, either March 30th or 31st, was able to see the roof and the side buildings, the side walls. Everything in its rough form was completed and approved, and Ms. Boone was told to continue to build your building, which she did. It was in April 12th of this year that Mr. Morris came back to the property. So he's coming back to the property for a third time while the builders are there and they're under construction, and notified them that there had been some complaints about the size and location of the building, and that they should stop work while he went to a meeting with the zoning administrator, presumably at this office. He was going to come back in an hour. The workers stopped working at his request. After they didn't come back and Mr. Morse didn't come back after an hour, the workers left and construction ended for the day. No stop work order, nothing.
What was that date? I'm sorry.
April 12th. Okay. No stop work order at that point. Another 2 weeks continues. The building continues to be built. And then finally on the 21st of April, Mr. Morse comes back again, this time with the zoning administrator, and they post this on the site. And work has stopped ever since. The condition of the building is 80% completed. This petition, at the time that the stop work order was issued, the zoning administrator handed Ms. Boone the application for a variance, and she was told, you need to file an application for a variance if you want to get the stop work order lifted so that you can continue your construction of the project. Which on May 16th of this year, this application objecting to the decision to issue the building permit was filed. And I know you want to take this in chunks, but we believe that Ms. Boone had a right to rely on the zoning permit that was issued by the zoning administrator. She acted in reliance upon the zoning permit to order the building materials, to hire the contractor, and to commence employment or to commence the construction and continue construction for 4 months on the project without any objection. We believe she also had a right to rely upon the building permit, which was issued by Mr. Morse, and his continued assurances that the size of the building, the location of the building, and everything else related to the construction was in compliance with the zoning regulations and the building regulations that he was appointed by the township to oversee. We believe that the issuance of the building permit denies a vested right that Ms. Boone has in continuing the construction of her project. And the stop work order represents a taking of her project if she's not allowed to continue to finish her project. She's left with a project that's 80% completed without the ability to complete that construction. She's applied with the request to stop construction. She's worked through this process with the zoning administrator, but we are at an impasse now because of this decision. So we are requesting in our first request that the decision of the zoning administrator to issue a building permit be rescinded by this board, and that Ms. Boone be allowed to continue with the construction of her building. Does the board have any questions for Ms. Boone or I?
So you said that on April 12th, there was a further stop order.
Yeah.
Which you didn't comply with, is that correct?
That's not true.
Oh, okay, so
She did stop for an hour.
for an hour, okay.
Yeah, her workers went home for the rest of the day.
Okay.
She contacted an attorney. It wasn't me.
So, and you said, so originally you said 75% of the building was completed on April 12th. And then on April 21st, you said 80%. So they only completed 5% of work in 2 weeks, is that correct?
My contractor went on spring break.
So not a lot of work got done the first week in April.
Okay.
Okay, so yes, you have that, those facts accurately.
Wasn't didn't you originally have a conversation with the zoning administrator about the size?
No,
You didn't talk to her first before you did the application and everything?
I did the application. And then
Okay, if you, please.
She should identify who
Oh,
she is for the record.
And if you have questions directed at Ms. Boone,
Okay.
then I'd ask you use the mic, because we are taping this and there are minutes that, so we need to get all the facts.
Right.
Okay, so if you're gonna ask her a question and you're gonna answer, please use the mic if you can, okay?
So I think at this point, Ms. Manley has a question for my client, Ms. Boone. Ms. Boone, if you would like to come up to the microphone and answer that question.
Sorry, what was your question?
So did you have a conversation or did you fill out an application originally for the bigger size and was?
It was always that size. The 36.
Speak as much as you can.
It was always that size, 36 by 56,
Okay,
always. That's what my permit, that's what my application said.
okay. You didn't have a discussion beforehand?
No,
Oh, okay.
and then she she emailed me, said you've been approved. I'm like, okay.
Chuck, you have any questions? Do you have any questions?
Well, there was another application which had a different amount of square feet. And we were kind of confused on where that one came from. If you could enlighten us, would appreciate it.
That did not come from me. That came from that. I don't know where it came from.
So her testimony is that she only completed one application for a zoning permit, and that application was for a 36 by 56 building. And she received only one zoning permit from the zoning administrator, and that was for a 36 by 56 building. The first time we learned that there was another zoning permit issued is when the attorney from Foster Swift contacted her former attorney and said, hey, we have this other application and we have this other zoning permit that you had seen for the first time and had no idea what its origin was. So what I've been trying to ascertain since I got involved with this case is with two zoning permits issued by the same person for the same building at the same location, how does one get issued for a 36 by 56 building and one get issued for a 35 by 36 building? By the same zoning administrator, there's only one source for that document, for those documents. Well, you're right. I don't know the procedure, but I believe the zoning administrator is the sole person to issue a zoning permit.
Whose handwriting is this?
I don't know what you're showing me.
On the zoning permit?
Look at the whole document, please.
That's me.
Ms. Boone said that was her handwriting on the document.
Thank you.
Okay, before you sit down, I have one other question. So what is your statement, Mrs. Boone, as to when you stopped work on the actual building? When did you actually stop work?
When we got probably about 4 o'clock on the 21st of April.
21st of April.
Yeah,
So there has been no additional work done to that building since
Nothing.
21st of April.
I parked my lawnmower in. That was it.
Okay,
And we do have the building contractor here tonight if you'd like his
Yeah.
confirmation of that.
okay,
So that's all I have to say about the first.
yeah,
Not advocating, I just want to clarify something.
If you need the microphone.
Yep, on this microphone. In your statement, you said the zoning administrator issuing the stop work order. I think technically it's the building official. I assume the relief you want is the same regardless of which of them issued it.
That's true.
Okay.
Chuck, any other questions?
We're done when we get done.
And before you, Laura, have we missed anything so far? Or Beth, you don't want to, any questions we need to ask?
We have to defer.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any other questions right now.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, thank you. Thank you for being patient with us. Okay, now it's time for public comment on the appeal process. Okay, if you filled out a form and you would like to, we have lots of written comments on this appeal, and we'll get to those in a minute. But if you're here tonight and you would like to speak, please bring your comment form up, and just so we can read off your name, we have a record of it. Wait, now, whether you're for or against, come on up. Again, please use the microphone, it is close as you can. I know most people are uncomfortable doing that, but it's a great help. Okay, Marcia,
Lucas.
Lucas. Okay,
I'll start with saying that,
I am against the the variance. I believe that the two zoning laws that were violated might have been confusing to Mr. Moore, but I feel that it was his, if he would have known it, he would have realized that the building was bigger than what was really allowable, and that the setback, I believe, from the lake was not where it was supposed to be, that there wasn't setback far enough from the lakefront. I know there are different zoning laws for residential lake property, and I'm not really clear on them, but I know that there's so many that have to be set back. Now, I think that the one was that it comes past the front of the house. That was one variance, or one that was wrong. I'll also say in defense of Ms. Boone, that from what I just heard now, she was following the rules. That it wasn't really her fault. She thought she had it approved and went on with it. I do think that people should be more concerned of the zoning before certain things are allowed. I know that the planning commission, the credo for the township is to keep it rural and everything else. And I feel like this building so close to the lake is an adverse to what the philosophy of the township is. And then I would also say that it looked to me like to get that building up that far close to the lake, that they had, that there was, and I don't know for sure because I wasn't on a boat in the winter or anything else, that they had to fill in some of that property to make it level. I don't know, but I think they did. And I don't know if there was any kind of a DNR permit, because I know there are certain laws within 25 feet of the lake frontage and so on and so forth that are supposed to be followed. And if we're issuing permits, the people who are issuing the permits should be cognizant of what the rules are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcia. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. Again, everybody gets a chance to talk. I would ask that if you're going to come up and talk, please be as concise as possible. And if somebody's already said something, just say, I reiterate what Marcia said or somebody else said. We don't need to have the same echo, the same verbiage over and over again, unless it's necessary. Madam, is there anybody else who'd like to come up and say something? Going once? Okay, great.
My name is Sherry Dubeck. I'm the property owner adjacent.
Sherry Dubeck. Dubeck.
Dubeck.
Forgive me. Let's just go on.
That's okay. I'd just like to say, as a homeowner, and with a building that should have gone to variance. And I don't know what the structure is here, but anywhere I've ever lived, if there was a variance going to be pulled for a building structure, certain properties within the area would be contacted so that they could make comment about that variance. That process was denied to me and any other neighbor. You'll have to excuse me if that's not a rule. I don't know. It is? I don't know. I'm just saying, wherever I've lived, if somebody was going to have to get a variance for a building, local residents are also required, the township's required to contact those residents and let them know so that we could have input. That was not done for whatever reason. Sounds like there might be people that don't know the rules. I haven't read the regulations. As a property owner, you are ultimately responsible for knowing what you're doing. And whoever the contractor was also responsible to make sure whether or not you have a permit, you should make sure that it's correct and that the laws are being followed. I think a responsible contractor would have done that. Once the structure does not impede our lake view as much, but other neighbors, it completely impacts their lake view. And I don't think that's fair.
Can I ask you a question? Where are you located relative to the property that we're
Next door.
right or left as you're looking from?
West side,
Left side.
the abandoned house.
Property taxes have been paid on that property, and we have personal issues that I won't address right now, but that's not why we're here, I don't think. Like I said, it seems like there was a lot of confusion, and some inappropriate possible things have happened, but it doesn't. I just feel that we were denied an opportunity to have impact on what was being built. And I don't agree with what was built for many reasons.
Ms. Dudek, do you mean you didn't get notice of this hearing or you didn't get notice before they built it?
We did not get notice.
Turn around, speak.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. We did not get notice of the building,
Okay. But you got
which I
notice
would
of
not
this.
expect to receive if there was no variance pulled,
But
right?
You got notice of this hearing tonight.
Yes.
Thank you.
Where are you in proximity to, you're just right next door to the left on the lake
Yes.
and hurting your view?
No, I just got done saying the structure does not impede my lake view.
Okay. Yeah.
But it does other people's lake views. Thank you.
We have anybody else that's here tonight, because we have lots of written input that we will go through. It's going to take us a while to go through all of everything, but. Okay. Again, please use the mic as much as you can, get it close, speak as loud as you can. We have John Adreni.
Yes, sir.
Adreni, right?
I'm fairly new to this series, so I don't know majority of zoning laws. And assuming if everything this attorney said is factual, I don't like this building. I don't agree with it. I think it looks terrible, especially that close to the water. But like I said, I don't know the laws. But if everything the attorney said is factual, why was there a stop work order? And I would think the building should come down if it's wrong, but I don't think it should be at their. If they were issued a permit, they shouldn't have been issued a permit. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I mean, I don't, if someone's issued a permit, I did a lot of building in a different place and they have the right to build it, but if it's wrong, it has to come, I think it should come down, but I don't think it should be at their cost. So,
Okay, John. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Frank
privilege,
Rubishek.
very good. Is a building and this was not followed in any round or reason. I mean, it didn't take much to see that it was off on more than one variance. But she got a permit, so somebody's gonna have to suck it up to make it right. And if she got the permit to do it, but it's very high profile lot on the lake. It's probably one of the most high profile properties on the lake. So you do this and don't take care of it, then it could be you can't, you just can't do it. It'll cause a whole ruckus on the lake. I mean, everybody else can do it. So that's it. I mean, so we shouldn't have to put everybody through this. You guys should go back in the room and say we screwed up and then figure it's really. Okay.
Okay, Frank, thank you. But you bring up a piece of paper, you got a piece of paper?
No, I don't.
State your name, please.
Savannah Bronze,
Is it
Savannah Bronze.
Savannah Bronze?
Yeah.
Okay, Savannah.
I live on the lake. He brought up a very good point. When you build anything around here, you have to get a permit. And when you have contractors, it's up to those contractors to make sure that they are in proper order and they are following the rules. So I have to say.
Yeah, thank you. Want to give everybody a chance to talk. Now's your chance. Beth, can we read? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Why do you shot?
This
on my
note.
I can use them. Okay, Karen, good. Karen, good.
I'm gonna borrow that for my notes and get it right back.
Oh, sure. Yeah, as long as you give it back.
Yes.
I know where you work.
Karen Gross, 08164 Street. So we do live on Saddle Lake as well. And I know for most of the residents on any of the surrounding lakes, view is very important. And I think it is very important just from the standpoint of being neighborly to keep that in mind when putting in a structure of any kind. It does sound like there may have been some confusion during the permitting process, but I'm very concerned from precedent being set if we do not hold fast to the zoning ordinance, that more and more people could have the same problem. Also, someone mentioned about there may have been fill brought in, and I didn't hear anyone say whether or not there was a soil erosion permit, which is very important, especially that near to the water. So primarily, the precedent is my biggest concern.
Thanks, Karen. Thank you. Yep. All right.
Just clarify that there is a soil erosion permit and there was a silt fence built or put up by the contractor in front of the
When was the full permit thing? And when was the so that's put in?
silt fence was put in March.
March?
Yes,
Was that with or without a permit?
after conversation with people at the DNR. And the actual Van Buren County Drain Commissioner issued the soil erosion permit. I think it was June.
When did you exactly? What day? Exactly what day?
We got all our ducks in a row, yes, we have the turn.
Part of your packet. Date issued July 3rd, 2023.
July 30th. That's last week, right?
Okay.
Am I correct? But you did say that you put in some fencing, some soil erosion fencing in March.
Yeah,
Without a permit.
it was based on a conversation with the DNR officials who said, this is what you need to do if you're going to build within that distance of the lake.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Sure, sure.
Ask Mr. Zepson if you could speak to the lake setback because it was raised in comments and I think it was within the public hearing notice. And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the permit that was issued, whichever version you look at, they all say 90 feet from the lake. And I wondered if you could speak to whether the building complies with that 90-foot setback.
the permits that I have don't have a 90-foot setback on them.
The applications.
The application said that the building would be back 90 feet, but the approval, the permit that was issued does not designate how far back from the lakefront the building is to be built. Now, I addressed this in the initial comments, and it had to do with the building inspector's conversations with Ms. Boone at the site as to where the location was. So the building was staked out, and the building was at its closest point, 78 feet. Now, 90 feet is completely arbitrary because it means nothing relative to the statute with the ordinance. The ordinance says if there's an accessory building within 200 feet, you must be behind that accessory building. Well, there is an accessory building within 200 feet, according to this map, and it's located within about 20 feet. I can show this to you. We can make it part of the record, but this is the neighbor next to the Dubex, and they have an auxiliary building that's located right on the waterfront. And I have a picture of that as well. So that's the first point is.
That building you're talking about.
Sure.
Can we hold that up so all can see?
Here is. Where's your building right there? It's close and white. That's two doors down, two different doors. So
This particular map doesn't have a system bill on it anyway. Oh, yeah, it does. Right.
it does.
150 feet on.
What is that building? Is it like that?
It's got a garage door. It looks like it's a garage or storage building.
Is it big enough to hold its car?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Enough to hold down.
The discussion in the building that it's referencing, it appears to be a garage, and it appears to be within 20 feet of the water.
Right.
I have no idea about that. You have your hand up like you know something about it.
Can I guess? I've seen that building forever. That building was there and they improved it, but it's always been there. And I've lived on the lake for 30 years.
Appreciate it.
So if I could continue.
Yes.
There was in the application, a statement made by the applicant that she believed the building would be within 90 feet of the, from the high water mark. Now, the township, the zoning
Please
administrator,
clarify that. You say, say that again, what you just said.
okay, so she believed that when she constructed the building, it would be 90 feet from the high water mark of the lake.
So then the contractor did it incorrectly then.
Well,
Is that what you're
it
saying?
got located, I'm not blaming anybody, I'm saying the building got located 78 feet from the high water mark.
So it's not in the correct place. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what is the correct place? Because the zoning ordinance says that if you're within 200 feet of another auxiliary building, you have to be behind that building, which it is. The township administrator didn't say when we submitted, when the application was submitted, hey, 90 feet has nothing to do with the front yard setback. The front yard setback is required to be either behind an auxiliary building within 200 feet of your building, or it has to be behind the front of your principal residence. Well, we know from this parcel, this building is way in front of the primary residence, okay? So you've already got a situation 2 doors down where you've got an auxiliary building that's 10 feet off, 20 feet off the water. And is way in front of the primary residence. So the building administrator should have said, the zoning administrator should have said, 90 feet is not the measurement that we're looking for. What we need to ascertain is whether or not the building the front yard setback complies with the zoning requirements. There was no determination at all by the zoning administrator as to whether or not the building was properly located relative to a front yard setback. Because if anybody could see, including Mr. Morse when he went out there, that the location of the building is forward of the principal residence. So if they were not going to use the neighbor's auxiliary building 200 feet away, and they instead wanted to use the primary building, which is her house, the zoning administrator should have said, you need to make sure you locate this building behind the front part of yours, the very advanced part, the closest to the lake of your primary residence. That wasn't done, nor when Mr. Morse came out there on 3 different occasions, January 5th, March 30th, and April 12th, did he say, hey, you know what? This building is in front of your primary residence. That violates the zoning regulation. You can't do that. So 90 feet, I'm not sure would have even gotten you into compliance with the way the zoning ordinance is written. It either has to be within the line of the other auxiliary building or within the line of your primary residence. And neither of those determinations were made either by the zoning administrator or the building inspector. And instead, on 3 different occasions, when there was an official out there from the township, building continued in its location. It was not a secret. Nobody was trying to hide anything. The building is located exactly where it's being built and everybody can see it. And if it was in the wrong place, on January 5th, all the building inspector had to say was, you know what, you can't put the building here. It's too close. You have to do this instead. Instead, she was given a building permit on January 5th when the building was staked out, and she had the rough-in inspection completed on the 31st of March. Nothing was said about the location relative to the house, the front line, or 90 feet. In fact, on the March 30th occasion, Mr. Morse called the DNR while he was standing there with Miss Boone and said, how close can a building be to the waterfront? And he got a response from the DNR that it was 50 feet, and he said, you're good to go, keep building. So there's all kinds of opportunity for township officials to stop this construction if it's in the wrong location. And the fact that it didn't get stopped and it was allowed to be continued is the reason we're here tonight. So it's a problem. I understand. And the only question is, how are we going to fix it? How are we going to address it? Okay.
All right.
Mr. Moore, the building official, is not here. We did have a meeting at Township Hall with Ms. Boone and her counsel and Mr. Moore, Ms. Pompey, and my recollection is that that is not how Mr. Moore recalled those facts, but he's not here. So I'm stating that because in the law, we call that hearsay. What was said is probably not determinative without him being here. Regardless, the building official is not in charge of zoning. The zoning permit application undisputably in all its iterations said 90 feet. And the permit itself, what it says is, this zoning permit is issued to certify that official approval has been granted by the Columbia Township zoning administrator on your zoning permit application. This permit certifies that the approved application is in compliance with Columbia Township zoning ordinance, and that authority is hereby granted to the owner of said property to make changes to the property as detailed in the application, in compliance with all conditions that may have been placed on such approval. So the applicant is bound by that, in my opinion. Certainly it's the ZBA's decision how it proceeds with the appeal, but I just wanted to point out that provision of the zoning permit for your benefit. Thank you.
Hi,
Where's Dave Dubek, neighbor to the west?
Dave, you bet. Okay,
A couple things, was reading through the zoning ordinance, accessory buildings under 200 square feet aren't required to be permitted. And they were existing structures, so to use that as an example might be a little far-fetched on that, because we have a boathouse down 20 feet from the water as well, like the neighbor, which is the adjacent property, and it's on a poured on slab grade, and it's under 200 square feet. I would imagine when it gets improved, it says we don't have to go for a permit, but that's a whole nother issue. The other requirement is it does clearly state it needs to be behind the setback of the residence on the site plan. And I guess the overlying issue is with the application, there needs to be a site survey or a site plan done that lists all these dimensions. So I'm not sure what's on that survey and if it lists 90 feet or 80 feet or 50 feet. On that. So it'd be really interesting to see what was on the original application. It's interesting to note the second application of the 35 by 36 meets the square footage requirement. The other concern I have is relying on the different job functions. Zoning permitting, zoning people are supposed to be experts in the zoning. Building inspectors, when they come out, should know the building codes. Is it the right type of lumber? Is it the right type of spacing? The structural requirement, the life and safety. They're not usually the most keen on the zoning permits. They might have some information, but we have to make sure that the people have their separate functions on that. So, and then the only other requirement I couldn't find in the zoning permit, because it seems like there were some responses to that, is the height of it. It says it cannot be higher than the principal residence. I heard 12 feet thrown out. I'm not sure exactly if 12 feet refers to the wall or is that to the top of the peak with the gable roof and all that. So I don't know how they measure the height on it, especially if it's on a sloped site. Is it at the shallow end or the deep end for that? So just some general comments after listening. So, okay, thank you.
thank you, Dave. I do have a question from Beth. The attorney from Ms. Boone has referenced this other building, 20 feet from the lake. You know, comment from one of the people in the audience and said it's been there for 30 years. Has there ever been was this building built before there was a zoning ordinance?
Yes, sir.
It was. So I'm not sure that. Okay.
It's only where it says what it says.
In the audience, is there anybody else in the audience that needs to speak? Beth, can we go through these? This is going to be a long list. You might buckle down, get a Coke, get a beer. Thank you.
And if I mispronounce a name, I'm gonna apologize right now, so please feel free to correct me.
Beth, would you like to sit up here?
I'm okay.
Yeah, it's good.
Sorry, I'm a little shorter than most. Okay, I have letters for and against, so I'm going to first read the four. It is to whom it may concern in the zoning board of Columbia Township. We have no concerns about the storage building being built on Holly Boone's property at 10236 51st Street, Grand Junction, Michigan, 49056. And again, I'm going to apologize. A lot of these are in cursive, so I don't mean to mispronounce. Virginia Munch, 10730. Looks like, what is it? I'm sorry. Seaview, thank you. Seaview Drive, Grand Junction, Michigan. Nancy Prolak and William Prolak. Of Evergreen Drive. Katie Munch of Seaview Drive.
Yep.
It appears to be last name of Lynch, Seaview Drive. Richard Munch. There's not a local address other than Grand Junction. Richard Munch of Seaview Drive. Schneider family and Gavin family, Seaview Drive. Robin Franklin of County Road 384, Shelley Ross, County Road 384, Barbara Clark, Lakeview Boulevard. The next letter is to your board members. I am writing in regards to the building being constructed at 10236 51st Street, Grand Junction, Michigan. I have had a home on Saddle Lake since my grandparents built it back in the 1950s. Please consider this communication as my complete support for Holly's pole barn. It will do nothing but increase the value, and I believe it is being very nicely done. If you have any further comments, please feel free to contact me. Thank you, Richard Munch, Saddle Lake property owner.
Sorry, Rosemary, can you know how to turn the air conditioner up in this room before it gets everybody?
I don't know if I know how for sure.
I will. I have a living.
Okay.
Everybody, we're all sweating over nothing, all right?
All right, the next is greetings. Over the years, my family has enjoyed the many benefits of living on Saddle Lake. We have seen great improvements and investment in the area. Regarding the pole barn under construction at 10236 51st Street in Grand Junction, it is my opinion that properly executed improvements to the property will enhance the value of its neighbors. I support the project and I'm glad to see the investment in the neighborhood. Eamon McMahon, is that correct? And next is addressed from a Robin Franklin and Shelley Ross, both Saddle Lake property owners. Please let it be known that we are in total support of Holly Boone's construction of her pole barn on her property. She applied and paid for all of her permits and received approval back in November of 22. And now all of a sudden the project is in jeopardy because a neighbor can't watch the sunset. This neighbor has beachfront and can watch her sunsets on her beach. This is the most ridiculous and petty concern I've ever heard of. I find that absolutely ridiculous and insulting. Holly is an honest person. She did everything right. I can't believe the township would go through all this after giving their approval and now backstepping because someone can't see the sunsets on the porch. Like I mentioned above, absolutely ridiculous. I will ask now, I have not seen any profanity, but I will not read it if that's the case. And then opposition. Dear Columbia Township Zoning Administrator and Zoning Board of Appeals, this letter is written in response to support zoning administrator's denial of a zoning permit for new construction of a 2016 square foot 36 by 56 by 19 pole barn, exceeding the maximum district allowance of 1,280 square feet, located closer to the waterfront than the primary residence dwelling on parcel ID 800601504300, a 1.5 acre waterfront lot owned by Holly A. Boone, 10236 51st Street. The complaint is submitted as a clear violation of the listed ordinances below. The pole barn fails to meet section 3.02 R2 D1 maximum total square footage for all accessory buildings at 1,280 square feet under 2 acres. The pole barn is 736 square feet over the specified limit. The pole barn fails to meet section 4.035A2 as accessory buildings 200 square feet or greater shall not be erected or maintained in any required side or lakefront setback area. The pole barn fails to meet section 4.03A5A2 as accessory buildings in the lakefront yard cannot be greater in height than 8 feet. The pole barn is 11 feet over the specified limit. The pole barn fails to meet section 4.03D2 as accessory buildings shall not extend closer to the lake than existing accessory structures on adjacent lots within 200 feet on either side. If there are no similar structures on adjacent lots within 200 feet, then the setback shall be the same as for a dwelling. The pole barn clearly extends closer to the lake than existing adjacent accessory structures. As stated in the signed Columbia Township residential petition, the character of the R2 district and their peculiar suitability for particular uses with interest to conserve the value of the buildings and encouraging the most appropriate use of land throughout the township will be diminished if the township board allows a pole barn to be erected in non-compliance with Columbia Township zoning ordinance. A precedent will be set for others on the lake to place pole barns on the lakeside yard. What is being proposed is a violation. In addition, as a side note, construction of the pole barn has begun until a stop work order was recently enforced. I contest the building of said pole barn in violation of the above cited ordinances. The pole barn is an unsightly monstrosity adjacent to the lakefront and an eyesore. The pole barn blocks the view of the landscape and sets an undesired precedence for the future, ultimately decreasing the value of the adjacent surrounding properties. Signed, Stephen Bozick. This letter is being sent, the next one, I'm sorry, this letter is being sent in response to property 80-06-015-043-00 Holly Boone 102 through 6 51st Street. Request to appeal ordinance concerning our building on the lake, which is too large for her lot size and much too close to the water than allowed. We are very much against allowing this to continue. We do not care if she was issued a permit to do what she has done, but we don't understand why such a permit was issued. I'm not sure if it was. Why and how was she able to get a permit for something that is so obvious against the ordinances on file? If so, someone clearly made a mistake, but that mistake should not exempt her from doing what is clearly written in the zoning rules. Rules should never be changed for one person's benefit, with others suffering because of that decision. Others, ourselves included, have had to go by the rules for pole barn buildings. We see that you have changed the rules a bit in the past 10 years, and now we would be allowed to build a 3,500 square foot instead of the 1,280 square foot allowed, or were we told was allowed? Yep, we were told was allowed at that time. We wanted larger, but it was not allowed, so we went by the rules, as this property owner should do also. Why would the township have zoning ordinances if they are not going to enforce them? Why would the township allow one to go completely against the ordinance while others must conform or be torn down? This building should be torn down and replaced with a structure within the rules of the zoning ordinance. It is simple and it is written exactly what we can have, where it can be placed, and how much land we must have. There should be no exceptions. Respectfully, Raymond and Savona. Bronze? Yeah. Bronze. If you don't mind, I'm just gonna grab some water.
Well, good for you. I'm glad you brought it. I didn't know when it's smart.
We're not even halfway done, sir.
I know you're not.
Dear Zoning Board of Appeals and Columbia Township Board, I understand that there is a meeting on June 21st to discuss the request for variance to build a pole barn at 10236 51st Street, Grand Junction. I oppose this variation request based on the size of the structure and setback proximity to the lake. Zoning rules help protect the character and feel of a neighborhood. I feel the current zoning ordinance section on lakefront yards should be enforced to maintain the special views and natural environment. If the intent of the building is for storage, there are other available alternatives and reasonable accommodations that could be made that would not require a variance. I looked up the Columbia Township zoning ordinance and within 10 minutes was able to find and read the relevant sections on accessory buildings and lakefront yards. Given how straightforward and concise the zoning ordinance is, I feel the petitioner or the petitioner's contractor was perhaps negligent in properly reviewing the zoning rules. A variance should not be authorized based on a petitioner's breach of the zoning rules. The current state of the structure should also not factor into the variance decision. I do not feel the township staff bears any responsibility for the current state of construction. I would hope staff could rely on building permit requests being presented accurately and in good faith within the ordinances. Details such as how the petitioner complies with current zoning rules and should be clearly stated in any permit applications. I kindly ask the Zoning Board of Appeals and Township Board to deny the variance and require steps for the current accessory structure to be disassembled. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Tom Rose of 51st Street. I want to voice my opinion as a satellite property owner on the case of Holly Boone. I understand the zoning administration's stance, but if the issue with building was the size, then a permit shouldn't have never been issued. That being said, the structure does not create an eyesore and look as it's being built in good taste. I think the building should be allowed to be completed. Thanks, Eric Carlson. Dear Sir, Madam, my name is Thomas Duffner and our family resides at 50176 County Road 385, Grand Junction, Michigan, in Columbia Township. I understand that there is a zoning board of appeal public hearing that will be held on June 21st, 2023. I may not be able to attend the meeting, but wanted to voice my opinion on this matter. I noticed that a new structure on the property requesting the appeal was under construction in very early spring. I was surprised by the structure's size and proximity to the lake. I believe a stop work order was issued in anticipation of the appeal meeting. My concerns are, if a stop work order was issued, has this order been respected? If this structure complying with the township building ordinances and similar regulations set forth by the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, DNR, based on the proximity of the structure to the lake, I respectfully ask that the board recognize that a structure of this size and the proximity to the lake could create a precedence for other property owners in the future, build at will. This precedence could have an adverse economic impact for property owners on Saddle Lake and other properties in the Columbia Township. Please confirm receipt of this email. Thanks, Thomas Duffner. We are property owners on Saddle Lake in Grand Junction, Michigan, and are writing our concerns on the appeal filed by Holly Boone at 10236 51st Grand Junction, Michigan. As property owners, we enjoy the view of the lake from the front of our home. If an appeal is granted to allow a 2016 foot structure listed as an accessory building be placed on the front side, lake side of the residential dwelling, it will not only block the view of our beautiful lake from them as well as their neighbors. To our understanding, a much smaller accessory building would be allowed on the back side of the residential dwelling, but it violates size and height that is permitted in the front of the residential dwelling. Our concerns are many. Not only does it look out of place with all of the other dwellings on our lake, it also would set a precedence that other property owners could do the same, which would adversely affect the beauty of our lakefront as well as possibly negatively impacting the values of our properties. We would like you to consider the importance of maintaining the beauty of our lake frontage by enforcing current guidelines, permit requests as it pertains to additions or changes to current structures. We would like the denial of a building permit be upheld and the structure be removed and to comply with current zoning limits if a structure is to be constructed. Thank you for your time and consideration in this matter. Please feel free to contact us if necessary. John and Lynn H, because I'm not going to pronounce that correctly. Just for the record, the last name is spelled Honiotes. Honiotes. Okay, thank you.
What is the name?
Honiotes.
I apologize. I just knew that one wasn't going to be one I was going to get correct. As any property owner of Columbia Township should be aware, Columbia Township is a zone community whereby extensive effort of the Columbia Township Planning Commission with public input and participation has been spent over the years to arrive at a comprehensive Columbia Township master plan and a Columbia Township zoning ordinance. Each of the Columbia Township zoning districts have specified regulations with respect to land use that have been approved by the community to achieve uniformity in land use consistent with the characteristics of each zone district. As a consequence, it should not be acceptable to justify any individual property owner deviations from zone district regulations because it is believed or is of the opinion that deviations will not adversely affect anything or anyone. The Columbia Township zoning administrator has the responsibility and the duty to render zoning decisions based on the long established community approved Columbia Township zoning ordinance. And Yeah, because I'm not seeing, that is from Roger Flaming. I would like to voice my concern on the appeal filed by Holly Boone regarding the large pole barn at 10236 51st Street, Grand Junction, Michigan. As a longtime property owner on Saddle Lake, I am deeply concerned about the negative impact this building is having on the tranquility and beauty of the lake. It is not compatible with the natural surroundings, existing structures, or intended use of the lake. It does not conform to the zoning regulations and is in violation of many zoning ordinances. If this structure is allowed to be completed, it will not only compromise the natural beauty of the lake, it will also set a precedence for potentially many more of these structures being built. This would have a detrimental effect on the homeowners of Saddle Lake by making the area less desirable, which will subsequently cause property values to go down. The Columbia Township zoning ordinances were carefully thought out and adopted in order to protect the land and the landowners. These ordinances are meant to ensure that the lake is utilized that the land, is utilized in a way that is compatible with its intended use and surroundings, and to preserve the natural beauty of the area. Therefore, I strongly urge you to enforce the township zoning ordinances and uphold the denial of a zoning permit for this structure. Sincerely, Nora Glad.
Thank you for reading these, by the way. I appreciate that. It's not my voice.
Thank you for bearing with me. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing me talk. My wife and I are in favor of a strict zoning ordinance regarding structures that are so large that they obstruct the view and beauty of the lakefront on Saddle Lake. We feel strongly that such structures as the one currently being built at 10236 51st Street, Grand Junction, Michigan, interfere with the beautification of the Saddle Lake from both land side and water side. There is a building code in place, and any variations from that building code should not be allowed. The current owner of the property currently has an attached two-car garage and should not be allowed a variance for a larger storage building. It occurs to us that if this huge structure is allowed, it will set a precedence for others to do the same. These types of allowances would be detrimental to the overall property value of our residents on our beautiful Saddle Lake. Sincerely, Lee and Peggy Ostrander. I do not feel that the zoning board of appeals should allow this structure. It violates at least two zoning laws as stated. The goal of the township is to keep the area appealing to our residents. Our big assets are beautiful lakes. The zoning laws were written to preserve our lakes and lands. Something this massive does not belong in a residential area and right on the lakefront. I also believe the zoning laws state how much of a lot can be covered in structures. Also, I believe that the land it sits on, close to lake, had to be filled in and therefore there should have been a permit issued by the state. People come here to see the lake, and with a building that large and that close to the lake, the view is destroyed. I am sorry, but the planning commissions have worked hard to get out township rural. Therefore, the laws are written and adopted for a reason. Thank you for considering my opinion. Marcia Lukens. My name is Peter. I'm going to spell the last name Noirot. I am the owner of the property at 50192 County Road 384, Grand Junction, Michigan. I am ready to support the zoning administrator decision to deny the permit and my opposition to granting a variance for the building at the above referenced property. This is not just a small deviation from a long-established community ordinance. If such an egregious variation is allowed, this becomes the standard. Please let this communication express my adamant opposition to this request for variance. Thank you for your attention to this matter and for your efforts on behalf of our community. Sincerely, Peter N. Sorry, I think I already read this one. My husband and I are in favor of a strict zoning ordinance requiring structures that are so large that they obstruct the view and beauty of the lakefront on Saddle Lake. We feel strongly that such structures as the one currently being built at 10236 51st Street, Grand Junction, Michigan, interfere with the beautification of Saddle Lake from both land side and the water side. It occurs to us that if this huge structure is allowed, it will set a precedence for others to do the same. These types of allowances would be detrimental to the overall property value of a residence on our beautiful Saddle Lake. Sincerely, Elizabeth and Roger Wildman. I do have a petition that has been signed. It's several pages long. Again, I will do my absolute best. Most names are signatures, so please excuse getting this.
What was the count? I presume that how many people are they?
Against.
Against.
Correct.
What was the
Yep,
count?
and I'll read the top of it, but I just wanted to give that as a precursor before I read. We, the undersigned residents of Columbia Township owning property on Saddle Lake, oppose the construction of a 36 by 56 by 19 pole barn on parcel ID 8006-015-04300, 1.5 acre lot owned by Holly A. Boone, 10236 51st Street. Our complaint is as listed. The pole barn fails to meet section 3.02 R2 D1, maximum total square foot for all accessory buildings at 1,280 under 2 acres. The pole barn under construction is 2,016 square feet. The pole barn fails to meet section 4.035A2 as accessory buildings 200 square feet or greater shall not be erected or maintained in any required side or lakefront setback area. The pole barn fails to meet section 4.03A 5A2 as accessory buildings in the lakefront yard cannot be greater in height than 8 feet. The pole barn fails to meet section 4.03D2 as accessory buildings shall not extend closer to the lake than existing accessory structures on adjacent lots within 200 feet on either side. If there are no similar structures on adjacent lots within 200 feet, then the setback shall be the same as for a dwelling. The character of the R2 district and the peculiar suitability for particular uses with intent to conserve the value of buildings and encouraging the most appropriate use of land throughout the township will be diminished if the township board allows a pole barn to be erected in non-compliance with Columbia Township zoning ordinance. A precedence will be set for others on the lake to place pole barns on the lakeside yard. What is being proposed is a violation. Signed. And you guys have everyone up here has a copy, and I will put it on the back table so anybody can see. Gregory K. 09867 Berta. Nancy Taylor, 50172 County Road 384.
Are these all the people that have signed it?
Yes,
Are you required to read it?
that's up to you guys.
No, I personally don't need to hear every name to you. I just,
Okay.
There are 9 people that signed it.
There's 10 pages. Thank you, because like I said, some of them I just can't
petition
read.
4 has 9 people, this petition, which is against, has 10 pages of names. But how many on a page?
Some have 1, some have
Yes,
6.
okay. We know it's a substantial number.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, I will put this out, so. Same with the other one, and that concludes the communication.
I don't know that, I have one here that I don't know, I didn't hear you. I think Ostrander, you already, you have one for Ostrander, but this one sounds different.
There's a couple Ostranders.
Yeah, there are a couple. This one sounds different than anything you've read.
Okay. Dear zoning administrator and board of appeals, I am sorry I cannot be there in person, but I would like to express my concern about the accessory structure being built on Saddle Lake where I reside. I feel that this will be opening a huge can of worms around the entire lake. It is 736 square feet larger than what is allowed and it is definitely an eyesore. It is impossible to believe that this was an honest mistake and we should just forgive them and allow it to continue. This building is much closer to the lake than the house. I feel that it is in the best interest of all Saddle Lake property owners that this facility would be built within the allowed restrictions. Sincerely, Gary and Paula Ostrander.
No, you can keep that, you can keep that. I have a copy there. Is there anybody else? Give anybody else a chance to talk. Okay. We go into the actual meeting right now, right? I do have some questions of that.
Your agenda has it for, after the public comments, communications, discussion of the application. It has it set for then having a public hearing on the variance and then getting to the decision making. But it's certainly within your discretion if you have questions for Beth to ask those.
The question that I have for Beth is, it's been multiple times it's been referenced, the height of the building. Now, the application, nowhere on this application does it say 9 feet, 8 feet, or whatever people have said. So how does the Mrs. Boone know what the actual height of the building is supposed to be? Because my understanding is that the pole barn is 19 feet high. Is that correct?
I believe so.
That's a big.
At the peak.
At the peak. Well, my point is that I've heard multiple people say 9 feet. I'm trying to figure out how you build something 36 feet wide with a peak of 9 foot.
It's no, sir, 19 feet.
I know the building is
Yeah.
19 feet, but I've heard multiple people reference the fact that this building is 19 feet, which is higher than they believe is allowed.
I think in the zoning court, they talk about, on a chart about the height of the sidewall, where they list 8 feet, 9 feet, 14 feet, depending on your lot size. Because if it's under an acre, between an acre and 3, and above 5 acres, there are a lot of different heights for the, I believe, the sidewall.
Here's what I'm trying to get to. Here's what I'm trying to get to. Is that multiple people who have been against this building have referenced the height and the fact that it blocks the view. I'm trying to figure out whether or not Mrs. Boone is in compliance with the law or with the zoning commission and the zoning. The ordinances at 19 feet. Because I'm still trying to figure out how you build a building with 36 feet wide, even 35 feet wide, with a peak of only 9 feet.
Okay.
302, B2.
What's it say?
The maximum building height, 2.5 stories, 35 feet.
35 feet, okay,
No,
That's
but
like-
I think
District
it's-
residential resort area.
okay. So
May I?
then all references to the 19 feet have to carry their water.
Sir,
Yes,
I may.
here's the point.
there are 2 sections that I'm going to reference. First section is section 3.02. District R2 would be D1 aggregate gross floor areas and maximum height for buildings accessory to residential uses shall not exceed for a land less than 2 acres, 1,280 square feet with the maximum building height, which is around a peak of 25 feet.
25 feet.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now, I do believe the confusion is, and I'm going to reference now, Article 4 under general provisions, section 4.03 minimum front, side and rear setbacks on all lots. A front yards, and I'm gonna jump down to A waterfront lots exceptions under 5. On a waterfront lot, an accessory building of 200 square feet or greater in area shall not be erected or maintained in any required side or lakefront setback area. One accessory structure less than 200 square feet in area and less than 8 feet in height may be erected within the required side and lakefront setback areas, providing that such structure is at least 10 feet from the high water level of the lake, and that any wall or roof overhang shall be at least 3 feet from a side lot line. So I believe that's where the 8 or 9 feet is coming. It's referencing to any accessory structures that are 200 feet or square feet or smaller. But this structure per,
So it doesn't
Correct.
apply to this building.
no, sir.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
Yep,
that.
so per the permit, the structure from ground to peak is 19 feet. And the allowance for, per, again, section 3.02 is a maximum height of 25 feet ground to peak.
Okay. That's helpful, Bill. For me, it's helpful. Thank you. I'm about ready to close. Is there anything else we need to do about before we close the public hearing on this appeal? Is there anything else you guys can think of? Okay, I'm gonna move to close the public hearing on this request. This is where we go into the deliberation about the appeal.
You have it in your agenda that you're going to then hear the variance request and then do a decision on each.
On each, so
That's
first-
how the agenda is written unless you want to change that. Which would require a motion.
welcome to the help here. I would personally rather stay with what's written in the agenda, even if it's two. So do we need a motion to go into to close the public hearing, go into, okay, I would propose a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay. I'm in favor. Chuck, are you in favor?
Second first.
Yeah. Anyhow, okay, now we go into the deliberation portion of this. And again, while I know it's really good for us to talk among ourselves, I don't want to do that. I want to use the microphone as much as you can, so everybody in the back can hear everything we're saying. So, there's a lot of things, here. My opinion is this thing is, it's difficult to discern what actually happened in the whole appeal, the whole permitting process. I have no idea what really transpired. I don't know how any of us will ever know for sure, but it boils down to, in my mind, it boils down to the building is bigger than allowed. It's bigger than allowed. And there's a reason why we have a zoning commission, a planning commission, to make sure that we stay within those rules. Chuck, if you would like to say some words before we get to a motion.
Well, there's a lot of confusion about this. However, one of the things that I am very concerned about is precedent that it may set. In particular. Obviously, there were some mistakes made. And it is not all from the party who put in the application.
Sir,
there seems to be.
Can you talk into the microphone, please, so people can hear you? Thank you.
There seems to be some confusion and some differences of documents that were sent or sent back, which it makes it very confusing because there's two applications that we've seen with some different numbers on. However, we approved, or at least our organization approved them to go ahead with this structure, but I think we have to balance the damage that it might do compared to the desire of one of our residents, which is very difficult. So I'm seeking some additional discussion about.
I'm torn as well, he was told she can do it, but really shouldn't be, and it sounds like a lot of people have had their eyes on it, and I just don't know. I don't know what the best way. I mean, would you say tear it down? That's not fair. Leave it up? That's not fair. So I don't know. Do you, how do you think this should be resolved? Is that a fair question?
No, I don't think that.
Okay, that's fine. That's
I
fine.
think that we follow the regulations that are set forth by the township in terms of getting a building permit.
Okay.
We follow the directions of the township and the zoning administrator and the building inspector. And we don't think we've done anything wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I did everything right.
Okay, again, we're not here to debate this. Need to ask the question. There's certainly, I echo what you said. I echo the concern you have all around. I have some serious concerns about what has transpired here. By everyone.
But how to move forward?
But how to move forward, the first thing we have to do is, and you're gonna need some help with this, Laura, is we're gonna make a motion to either approve or deny the original appeal.
Do you want to do that now, or do you want to do the public hearing on the variance? I'm only asking because of how your agenda is written, but agenda is not law, it's not even required by law. So if you want to do it another way, I just want you to maybe make a motion that that's what you're gonna do, consider the appeal before the public. Part, we've had a public hearing just on the appeal part.
Yeah.
And you've kind of scheduled yourself to do both public hearings and then both decisions. So
I'm
it's
okay with
your
going-
pleasure.
We need to change the agenda to allow us to talk about the variance.
You can make a motion to amend the agenda to move item I down below item J. So basically switch the order of I and J.
I would make that motion. To move item J, I down to behind item J.
I seconded.
Okay.
So then we're gonna vote.
No, we're not going to vote.
We're still gonna vote on that motion you just made though.
Pardon me?
On the motion to amend the
yeah,
agenda,
yeah.
vote on that.
Yes. Okay, I am going to vote yes.
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 Okay, now we are at item J, decision on appeal of zoning administrator's decision. After that part, we will do the public hearing on the variance request. So we're not done after this vote. There will be then the variance request. This is the appeal part from the stop work
Yeah.
order.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Trying to phrase this, what we need now is a motion to either allow or deny the appeal of the decision by Beth to not grant the, no, am I saying it wrong?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's an appeal of the stop work order, which Ms. Boone perceived to be issued by the zoning administrator. I think technically is issued by the building official, but regardless, they're challenging the stop work order and saying that should not have been issued, at least, based on the size. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, so correct me.
One's a petition that was filed on May 16th. And the other was filed on June 8th. Okay,
Yeah.
so the May 16th was appealing
Yeah.
the stop work order.
Yeah.
The June 8th petition was filed as a request for a variance from it's a dimensional variance to the size of the building.
Yeah, so this is the appeal of the stop work order.
Okay,
All right.
I had a different interpretation of what the original appeal was. I thought the original appeal, and I thought this is the way it was written here, was to appeal Beth's decision to deny the permit as she requested, the 36 by mean, 36 by 56.
She didn't deny it. She didn't deny it.
She didn't
She
approve.
granted it.
Okay,
We have a zoning permit. It's 36 by 50.
again, we're getting into the weeds about who did what here. So explain, come back to me again.
What we're supposed to vote on is their appeal.
Of the decision
Stop-
to issue a stop
stop
work
work order.
Now, where along the line, did any of this documentation I saw say anything about the stop work order? I never saw anything that said it referenced the stop work order. All I saw was the appeal of the decision by Beth to not grant a permit.
A petition.
No.
I'll try it. Mr. Johnson can correct me if I'm wrong. I think the appeal that was filed was really sort of written as a variance request because that was what Ms. Boone thought she was doing. But I think the notice of this hearing on the appeal framed it, you know, that the appeal would go forward since you had paid a fee for an appeal, that there would still be an appeal. I would agree. Somebody can disagree with me if they disagree with me, but I don't think it's an appeal of the zoning administrator's denial of anything because there was a permit issued, as Mr. Zesson said. I think it's really an appeal of the township saying you can't do this after the township issued a permit that said you can do this. Did I sum that up fairly?
Yes, very, very well said.
So I think that's what we're at. And within that, I think there's an issue of the lake setback that we talked about and an issue of the building size. I think both of those are what have been discussed tonight.
Where, before you sit down, Laura,
Yeah.
where was the lake back setback referenced in which one of these, the appeal or the variance?
Not the variance, I don't believe. The stop work order is mentioned in the appeal. I think that, I'm just rereading this. The building inspector approved the location, the ordinance required the 25-foot setback from the high water mark. That is in the appeal.
It's in the appeal.
Correct. So they raised both the size of the building and the lake setback listed in our public hearing notice. So it's appropriate for the ZBA to address both of those issues.
So. Which one's the word?
No, you don't.
Okay. So by voting on the appeal, we would be covering both of those things, meaning the setback from the lake and the size.
I think you could parse out the issues there and discuss them separately, even if there's one vote.
Under the appeal.
That's my, I mean, there have been a couple of issues discussed, so I don't think it's just, you know, all in one. I think it's fair for the ZBA to discuss and deliberate on both of those issues in deciding the appeal. I mean, if you determine that both bases were wrong and a stop work order should not have been issued, then that would be granting the appeal. If you determine the township should not have halted based on the size and should not have halted based on the setback, based on what you've heard tonight, then that would be granting the appeal. If you only find one, then I think you have to deny the appeal, because if you say, yeah, we shouldn't have stopped it on the size, but yeah, it was right to stop it based on the lakefront, or vice versa, shouldn't have halted it based on the lake, but should have on the size, then I think you're denying. I know, this is like an LSAT question. Then I think you would be denying the appeal, or if you find that it was right on both grounds, you would be denying the appeal. Did that not track?
You could grant it.
To grant the appeal, you would have to find that the township was wrong altogether in the stop work order, which means you agree with Ms. Boone on both the lake setback and the building size issues. Not necessarily that what the size should be under the ordinance, but that she refused the permit and relied on it. Do you want me to go into that again?
I'm trying to think of a proper way to phrase this vote here, because. And again, the problem is, you addressed the problem, you got two problems here, one is the size of the building, and the it's been grandfathered in forever, or whatever, but there has never been a permit issued for that building, is there? Did you know of?
I don't know what you're referring.
You're talking about the
to, but-
accessory building at the neighbors?
Yeah,
That was there when we were at the property 30 years
Right by the
ago.
lake.
that's my.
It's not what I'm talking about at all.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, what were you talking about? I apologize.
I'm saying.
Oh, stop working.
Stop work order, site. The lake yard setback on the lake side.
So you could discuss these two items separately, and if you want to have a motion, frankly, I think you have the discretion to just discuss those before you make a motion and deliberate.